By and large, Britain's publishers are in for a bad year in 1981 with soaring prices, falling sales and desperate profit margins. Now, once the pride of Britain, the publishers are almost on their knees. All that is, except one, the firm of Mills Boon. Now, that's not a pairing that leaps to the tongue like Faber and Faber, Weidenfeld and Nicholson, Hodder and Stoughton. Yet if you notice those ads on the tube or those TV ads, and they're the first ever nationwide campaign by a book publisher, you'll know the name at least. Last year, Mills Boon's sales rose by 23%. This year, they should rise by another 20%. Now, what are they selling? Well, what their own sociologists call the literature of reassurance. Fran Morrison reports.
The 738 from Manchester via Stoke-on-Trent, due to arrive at 10:50, now approaching platform 12.
The lady arriving on an important business trip to London is a best-selling author. In the last decade, 20 million of her books have been sold worldwide. Her 38 novels have made her rich enough to refuse to disclose how rich. Yet, outside the immediate confines of her publishing house, hardly anyone has heard of Mary Wibberley.
Between the covers of a Mills Boon, you'll discover romance. Perhaps romance in faraway, exotic places, even romance in a busy hospital, or the historic past, seemingly unattainable, always fascinating.
When Mills Boon launched an unprecedented TV advertising campaign last month, it wasn't to push their authors' names, but their own. And the name is now one of the few successful ones left in British publishing. Last year, while other houses were losing millions, firing employees and closing subsidiaries, Mills Boon gained an astonishing 23% increase in their already vast female readership.
At the age of 18, when most normal girls are beginning to take an interest in men, Claire had met Luke Murray, and after one shameful and terrifying encounter with him, had been afraid of men ever since.
Yes, and it's still set on a remote island, actually.
And this is another imaginary.
Yes, another imaginary.
West Indian
I do like imaginary tropical islands because you can have your own flora and fauna, and of course nobody can say, well, that doesn't exist there because this is my own place.
That's the sort of lazy way of not doing your research,
it probably
Mary.
Is. I do my research. I get the National Geographical magazines and I watch all the films and I make a trivial lot of notes. But with that came in a sudden rush. I got the hero and I got the title first for no reason at all, and I just had to sit and write it.
There's nothing misty and romantic about the company's operation. Mills Boon's success rests on hard-headed marketing, meticulous research and careful editorial control. Mrs. Wibberley's editor, Frances Whitehead, has 2 MAs, English from Oxford, librarianship from Sheffield. Her job is to look after 150 lady writers and make sure they keep a regular product on stream.
She arrives at this remote island to stay in a remote house for a couple of weeks, and lo, there is this man, and the first line is, "This is a nice surprise," said a man's voice, heavily ironic. "My first visitor." That's her introduction to him. So obviously there's going to be bags of aggression straight off.
I like the opening because you're straight into the story.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why I did it.
And then you explain later.
Oh yes, hopefully. When I've found out myself, as I go on writing it every day, I find out what's going to happen. Well, his name's Jake Galloway. He's 34. Deceptive looking, appears quiet and shy, but in reality a well-controlled volcano ready to erupt. Now, I haven't written that book. As I say, I just made these notes. I've got lots of notes here, and I've got a complete book in here, and I haven't written here. But that is now stuck in my mind firmly as somebody who is quiet on the surface, but probably capable of violence, but not necessarily violent.
The names are very important, aren't they?
The names are important to me, and I think to most of the Mills Boon writers. I do like strong, hard names for the men.
For example?
Well, Jake, Garth, or Gareth. A lot of names seem to begin with G, probably because G is a hard letter. I've had one called Jago, Jago.
In May, your reader service is sending out the quarterly catalogue, and I might include a questionnaire with that. I probably send it to a sample, I should think, of about 20,000 people altogether.
No one can accuse Mills Boon of not knowing their market. They hire a sociologist, Dr. Peter Mann, to scrutinise the target customers. 2 national surveys have convinced Dr. Mann that the readers are of above-average education. And they're not just frustrated spinsters or crazed pubescents. Romantic fiction, he says, accounts for 1/4 of all women's reading.
If I do ever feel that there is a stereotype at all, and I don't really believe there is, but if there were a stereotype, I would say it was probably a youngish married woman with a couple of children to look after, a house to look after, and maybe a job as well. And when she has her bit of spare time to herself, she likes to curl up with an enjoyable book. And that is absolutely a Mills Boon romance reader.
"This is going to hurt," she said apologetically, looking up at Mike, using her free hand to brush the damp tendrils from her face. The other hand was resting lightly on his ankle.
Not every writer can be a Mary Wibberley. Mills and Boon receive 3 or 4 unsolicited manuscripts every day and read them all. But they find few who have mastered the skill successfully. This is a genre in its own right, with its own good and bad writing.
To Linda, that was all Mike was at the moment, a patient needing her care. That he was so big, so damnably attractive in his sheer masculinity, never entered her head.
The way we organise ourselves, really, is to take the books that we want to publish from the flood of manuscripts that comes into us, very few of which actually end up getting published because we have rather stringent editorial rules as to whether books are going to be published or not. We have a rather strict editorial vetting process. When it's been decided those books will be published, this particular title will be published, we're able to put the book out under the imprint of our name, Mills Boon, in such a way that we can also promote the name of the company, and by promoting the name of the company, give the reader or the buyer a guarantee, as I say, of a certain kind of a read.
The books are all exactly 192 pages long, the formula predictable. Heroines may be high-spirited, but in the end, heroes dominate. Marriage is the goal and the prize. Sex does occur, but never in physical detail, and usually wrapped in moral agonising. Should she have given in? Will he think her cheap? The books reinforce, not challenge, the reader's moral codes. And the readers seem insatiable.
We sell approximately 25 of each of 10 titles a month, which is about 250 books. Now, most publishers, to think that they could sell 25 of every book they published in a month, would be only too pleased to have that kind of record.
How do the customers actually ask for them?
They come and ask for the latest Mills Boon. Have you got this month's Mills Boon?
What quantities do they buy?
Some of them buy 10 a month, some buy 5 or 6.
Feminists may castigate these stories for their rosy unreality and limited expectations. Serious critics and the Arts Council Literature panel hold them in the embarrassed disregard once reserved for pornography. But millions of women just keep on buying.
Romances have always been with us and always will be, and whilst there's thousands, I dare say thousands of other kinds of books, there is nothing more reassuring than heroine falling in love with hero. All right, bags of conflict, things going wrong all the way through the book, but at the end, nice happy ending so that they can put the book down with a satisfied feeling and feel good. What's wrong with that?
The Mills Boon Rose is the rose of romance. New and different romances every month.
The Mills Boon Rose is the rose of romance.